Hello, my name is Elaine Anderson, and I'm running this channel, Question Research. I want to say first, Happy Black History Month. One of my favorite months of the year. I should have did better at promoting. However, this past month has been really emotional, and I just want to thank everybody who have supported my family and me in this trying time. It's 2020 started off really well, and then I got the hit of a lot of a lifetime. So just definitely appreciate your loved ones and people around you, your environment, when you're in a good environment, and people around you, your loved ones, friends, neighbors, everyone. With that being said, being the first day of Black History Month, which I'm very excited for, I will be doing several topics today. One topic will be about the Green Book. Um, it's based off. This would be the author Hugo Green. I wanted to talk about him. Also, the diorama on Google today with the four boys, college students. I should say four college students who are male, sitting doing the sit-in at Woolworths. So the first order of business I will be talking about is the Green Book. Now, it was a movie that came out not January, November 2018, chronicling the life of Dr. I can't remember his name, but chronicling this African American man who lived in above Carnegie Hall in New York City, and this Italian, guy who was also like a bouncer, but had a lot more street smarts. Whereas Dr. Shirley, that was his name. Um, he was also book smart, but he was also street smart in a different kind of way. So I'm not going to really get too much into that story, but that's what prompted me into looking into this whole thing about the Green Book. So the Green Book was written by Victor Hugo Green. He was a postal service worker, and so during this time, at a particular time in U.S. history, there was a such thing as Jim Crow laws, and segregation was really heavy in the South. Um, so what he did, he created a book. So he named the book after him. A couple of the names he has is the Negro Motorist Green Book and the Negro Travelers Green Book. So these were safe spaces for African Americans who traveled through the South when they needed a place to stay, a place to eat, the place to be around were mainly where Black people would be. Hugo was born in November 9th, 1892, and he passed in 1960. He printed 15,000 copies of this book. Also, this started in the 30s. He compiled data. So, what really helped him a lot, his line of profession, was by being a postal service worker, he had opportunity and access to the information and data to get together and for Black people to have as they travel to the South, because some Black people still have family in the South, well, still had a lot of family in the South, as well as living in the North, like some of the northern cities like Chicago, New York City, East Coast, living on the West Coast, and all of that. Um, he also had an international guide that came out for Bermuda and Canada and Mexico in 1949. So what I thought that was very interesting about this book was pretty much here to save people's lives, because you don't want to go into an establishment that did not really cater to African Americans. And usually if African Americans showed up in certain places that they were not welcomed in, they were pretty much not ever heard from, or they were hurt or killed. So this is a quote from Victor Hugo Green. There will be a day sometime in the near future when this guide will not have be published, will not have to be published. That is when we are as a race will have equal rights and privileges in the United States. Well, I'm not saying I'm in total agreement with the quote, but that's the idea. there's some things that we're still, fighting, or still not even adjusting to, fighting when it comes to treatment of Black people in America and across the globe. So this is was his idea, that we would be able to move pretty much freely, and we do. However, there's some things that are systemic, or I would say institutionalized, to block out Black people, but that doesn't mean we're going to give up. Um, Next couple of subjects I wanted to get on, next two, was the since this being the first day of Black History Month, February 1st, 1960, marked a 60-year anniversary of the sit-ins at Woolworths. Now, Woolworths was like a department store way back in the day. I remember hearing about Woolworths, and they also had a lunch counter. Walgreens used to have a lunch counter way back in the day. So I believe at one point in time, Black people were able to frequent Woolworths, like buy things from them, buy products. There's nothing wrong taking the money, but it was a problem with Black people eating amongst their white counterparts. So this started on February 1st at Woolworths. So they wanted to combat the Jim Crow laws in the South. So more people joined in on this. I also have read literature from Black authors who are matured in the game, matured in certain ways, where not in the game, but in the game of life, I should say. Where you will read their personal stories. Like, I read Pam Greer's book. She was talking about how she lived in Colorado, and how she moved to California, and she would hear things that if a Black person would go into a store in California, they were able to try on clothes. Now, we take those like little simple liberties for granted. When she was in Colorado, that wasn't really, acceptable for a Black person to come in a store and try on clothes. You had to buy the clothing and then try it on at home, and then there you go. So that was very interesting. When I was reading her book, I forgot the name of her book, but I read it like years ago. So college students wanted to fight against these inequalities, because it's always good to take our money but mistreat people. Now, with this being said, Google did a diorama. It was a lady named Karen Collins. She's based out of Compton, California, and she's the founder of a museum. It's called the African American Miniature Museum, and she also has she runs it along with her husband, Eddie Lewis. So I got all this from CNN. I was reading an article about it, and she was saying how she always wanted a dollhouse, but since she was being raised by a single mother, her mother couldn't afford it. This is a Black woman. So 40 years later, she ended up buying her own dollhouse, and that's where her love for like three-dimensional like dolls and dioramas came about. So she started making them. She was also inspired by this since her son was also incarcerated in the 1990s. Um, so she runs the museum out of her own home, and usually her work is displayed in churches, libraries, and in schools. In schools, and this is a way for is about telling a history. So the four men, young males that was in the sitting at Woolworth, she did that for the doodle art today. The doodle art today. So that's where her love. So she's Black as well. So I want to also celebrate her and her husband, Karen Collins and Eddie Lewis, for bringing their talents for the world to see. Millions, billions of people have seen this diorama of the four students doing a sit-in, and it also marks a 60-year anniversary of the sit-ins at Woolworths. So that was that was very interesting and heartfelt to me. Um, Also, I want to thank you for listening to what I brought today to the table, Black History Month. I want to at least do one video a day on something about Black History Month. I may also include the doodles that Google put together, and also make sure you subscribe to my channel. Also follow me on Instagram at I'm at Question and Research on Instagram. Um, you'll start to get to know me, get to know what I bring to the table as far as running this channel and everything. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit a bell notification, and also follow me on Instagram. Thank you.